Hey guys, it's Don with Pa's Garden Journal with this week's entry. We'll be taking a break from these cold, windy, gray days that we're having while we wait for the winter time. And we've had a cold snap come through here, and we've been down in the freezing now for 3 or 4 days in a row. I thought it might be fun during this time to take a quick review of my garden from this past summer. Since we're not doing any gardening right now, it's kind of hard to see what's going on with anything. But first, let me ask you a question. Do you keep any kind of journal or diary or records of your gardening activities? If you don't, you should start doing that this year, especially taking pictures. I've been keeping a written record now for about 10 years actually, and I certainly have done pictures a lot longer than that. Now, I was surprised to see how much my approach changed from time to time as the years went by, and how I adjusted to the environment as well as my age. You know how that goes, or maybe you don't. So let's jump right in. I thought this would be a good place to start. This is our back in May of 2024, and I always lay down woven weed fabric on my garden. I've done this now for 2 years, and I love it. Here the walkways are already covered up, and the planting rows are all covered up with holes in those planting rows. You'll notice the holes that's been burned in the fabric if you look closely. And I direct seed the plants right into those holes, right into the ground. And I do that with everything I plant. The only exception are my tomatoes, and I buy those at the store and set those out once I put my trellis in place. And speaking of my tomatoes, this year I decided to use cattle panel fencing rather than individual tomato cages. And I've set up the panels, and then I plant the tomatoes in place, and I later go around and tie them up to the panels as they grow. This seems to work really, really good this past year, and that was my first year doing that. And so I'm gonna be doing that again for a few years, I suspect. Now here's a picture of the garden back in May when it was first getting started, and was coming along pretty good. Everything was sprouted, everything was coming up nicely, and you can see the rows, how I've got them laid out like a bed with a walkway in between each one, and each row of beans has 2 rows of seeds planted. And the same thing with the squash. If you look from right to left, you got right here in front of us, we've got 2 beds of the snap beans, green beans, and next to them on the right in front of the scarecrow is the squash, 2 rows of squash. And of course, as things go, I have to babysit all these plants, and I'm out there just about every day keeping an eye on things. I have to make sure there's no pest getting into anything, and or some little sneaky rabbit crawling under my fence and nibbling. And I'm glad I have some help there from my trusty scarecrow too. Here's a nice picture of back in June when everything was flourishing. All the plants have gotten bigger. You just see how the weed fabric is keeping down the weeds too, between the grass, between all the beds. And I absolutely just love this stuff. Also, if you'll see the big tall sunflower there, that is totally a volunteer plant. I've never planted any sunflowers anywhere on my property, and that one just showed up. So thank you, birds, for whoever brought it in, and I let it grow, and we totally enjoyed it, as well as the birds coming back to it. And the scarecrow had a good time watching over it all too. And this picture is basically the same view. I just walked across the garden over to the other side and taking it back toward my chicken coop. You can see there on the left center, and that long trellis looking thing are my muscadines that separates my garden. Well, it's the edge of the garden back there. I have a lot of room between it and the plants in the garden. So It's a good layout, I think, and the chickens enjoy the hen house back there as well. Now here you get another view of the tomato trellis. Again, this is later on in June. Things are just starting to get going good, but the tomatoes are running up there. I've already tagged them up one time. The rows you see right next to them there is my okra that's coming up, and it got a very, very slow start last year. Was being very stubborn. Now as those hot July Georgia summer days got here, of course the rain quit, as always in the summertime, and we have a lot of watering I have to do. I don't do the drip irrigation at all, but I do run the well, run the hose out there, and I just like spending time out there, just even walking along and watering everything. And the good news about the weed fabric is it does allow water to pass through that. So you just water it just like you would if it was just a row of raw dirt, and the water's just fine. You can see how all the crops are just flourishing there. So I'm really happy with the way that turned out, but I spent a lot of time watering. And of course, along with watering in the hot summertime, I also get to scoot along the roads and do some picking in the hot summertime as well. I try to get out here and do this every morning, or in the mornings when I do get to have to pick. And some mornings I make it and some mornings I don't, but it gets done either way, and I enjoy it when I am out there. And of course, then I was back to watering again too. We did have a lot of long, hot, dry weeks during the summertime, and later on in October we had 0 rain for the whole month. I do keep a rain gauge out there, and I keep an eye on how things are going, and I try to keep it watered every week, but I get busy with other things, and first thing I know it's been a week or two, and then the plants start screaming out to me they need watering. But again, if you look at the walkways, you can see there's no weeds. I mean, the weed fabric does the job. Well, by the time August rolls around, the vegetable garden is just about finishing up for the most part. Here I've cut down one row of okra, one bed of okra. The tomatoes are starting to play out. They're just about done with all the heat. They just quit growing and producing. So I'm starting to get some things cleaned up there. I'll take all that okra back to my pastures and let the deer have a munchie and eat it where they can. And actually the cleanup doesn't take very long, because I usually clean up a bed at a time, and I'll may take an afternoon and do one whole bed and get it cleaned up, and then move on to the next one the next day. So it's not like I have to clean up the whole garden all at the same time. And again, this is August, and you see the walkway between the okra and the tomatoes. No weeds, no grass, and I love it. Well, now that we've taken a good look at what we did last year, all in all, I would say we had a very good year. We just grew the basic crops around here: green beans, lima beans, purple hull peas, squash, okra, tomatoes, white potatoes, and sweet potatoes. And we kept things simple, because I'm a simple kind of guy. We also ate fresh produce all summer, and we put a lot back in the freezer for this winter. And also we gave a lot of food away to our families, and also took food over to the church and shared with our friends over there. So a lot of people have enjoyed our efforts this year, and I thank God for his blessings of abundant crops every year, but especially this year. It's been a good year. As I mentioned at the beginning of this, it's always good to keep yourself a journal and take lots of pictures. Just in this video, I realized things I'm already changing since last summer, and how to try to make some things easier. And some things work out, some things don't, but I keep adjusting and tweaking all the time and looking for a better and easier way to do it. And it's always great to have a record of what happened last time, so you can compare each year as you go along. And that's why I was suggested you have a journal of some sort. We can go back and I do keep a rain gauge and keep up with how much rain we had and how much rain we got. But for now, we'll stop here for this break from the winter blogs, and I hope you have enjoyed this look back as much as I did. Thanks again for watching and following along with me, and I'd appreciate it if you like this, if you would just give me a thumbs up and subscribe and come along with me. And of course, your comments are always welcome. So thanks again, and now I'm going to the porch swing, and I'll see you in the next one.